let's get started. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in the session today. And today I'll talk about the new language features, new and modified language features in Java 14 and 15. What these features are, why you need them, and how you can use them in your applications. And I would live code them, and I would not be using a lot of static slides. And just in case if you're trying to Google me to find what I do apart from presenting at conferences like this, and you can stop that right now. So I work as a developer advocate with JetBrains, and what that essentially means is that I help developers become a better version of themselves by using IntelliJ IDEA in the best possible manner. I'm also a Java champion, and I have written a couple of books mostly on Java certification, because I strongly believe that writing Java certifications can take your Java skills to the next level. So before I start, let me take a step back and talk about the new release cadence of Java and how it has impacted how we get to know or hear about the new language features. So Java 8 was released in March 2014. After 3.5 years, Java 9 was released in September 2017. And with Java 9, the release cadence changed. And now we have a newer version of Java every 6 months, which is amazing. And next week, we are seeing the release of Java 15. So what do you think? Are there any benefits to the new release cadence? I think yes, they are, because instead of having one big bang version release of Java every 3 to 4 years, it's good to have more predictable releases, and all the features get that spotlight that they deserve. Because if like Java 9 was released with more than 100 features, and even though it had a lot of beneficial features like compact strings, the limelight was on the module system or the flow API and in the bigger features. So all the features get the attention spotlight that they deserve. As developers, we can also see the new features or all the features and then make informed decisions on which features we want and which we might not want. So it would be interesting to know which Java, the latest Java version you have used. It could be production or just the version that you use to try out the new features. And I would come to the question probably at the end of the session. And regarding the questions, please feel free to post your questions in the chat window, and I'll take up the questions mostly, I think, at the end of the session, but I could also pick up the questions during the sessions. So let's get started with Java 14. The first question that comes to anyone's mind would be, how do you find out what's new? So I have two go-to resources for that. The first one is the OpenJDK page, which lists all the features that go in a Java version. Of course, if you click on any of this link, you'll get all the details that you need. But as developers, I'm also interested to know, are there any API changes from Java 13 to 14? And if they are, how can I find them? So this is the link, excuse me, which you can use to find out. So now that I'm talking about Java 14, by using this link, and I'll share the link to the slides later, you can find out how the API in Java 13 changed to Java 14. So let me click here and open this page. I think I already have this page open somewhere, right? So here, so this is the page which I get when I click on that one. So let me click on, let's say, Java Lang. And so this page gives me a difference. It gives me the list of changes, additions, and removals in methods, packages, documentation, everything. So let's just scroll and see what are the things which change. Math class change. Wow, record. So let's click on record and see. So as you can see, this is a new class which was added in 14. So this is how you can find out how the API has changed from one version to another. So in this session, I'll cover the new language features in Java 14, which are all of these. Records was introduced as a preview language feature in Java 14. In Java 15, it is in its second preview. And after some time during the session, I would come to what the preview features are and how are they relevant and important. So let me start with records, which I mentioned is a preview language feature. It's a new type of class in Java 14, and they have introduced a compact form to model value objects. Why do you think you need them? That is the most important question to answer before you even start to talk about how do you use them or where do you use them. So the first question is, why do you need them? So let's talk about an example, an analogy. Imagine you go shopping for pants and all the pants in the store, they are all of the same size. So what happens? Depending on your size, the pant could be big, it could be tight, or it could be small for you. And if you're lucky enough, it might fit perfectly. What if we are not the lucky one? We modify the pants so that we try to fit ourselves in. And this is what we have been doing with the classes in Java when we wanted to model our data, when we just wanted to encapsulate the data, have a data carrier class, and then we just wanted to move it around, whether it was writing it to a file, sending it to a network, or doing other things. So let's see how records has changed that. So let me go to, I would demo that feature. I would demo records using IntelliJ IDEA 2020.2, which is the latest version. This version supports Java 14 and 15. As I mentioned, Java 15 would be released next week. So let me hop on to my editor. Right. So we are talking about records in Java, and let me go to another file. So this is a class, a very simple example which you would come across quite often. So here I want to store and retrieve details like name and age of a person. So what do I do with the regular class? Oh my God, this mic. Yes. So I can create a new class. Let me say the name of the class is person. And I say, okay, I want two fields. I want a string. I want name of type string. And I want another variable, which is of type age. Type int name age. Sorry. Okay, and yes, following the encapsulation principles, the fields should be private. It's a good thing to define your field as private. So what are the next steps? Because the fields are private, I would need the getters and setters and the constructor as well. So let me insert that. I can say I want these two fields, and let me go and let me insert the getters and setters as well. Right, now I have all the getters and setters. And while I would be using IntelliJ IDEA and while I would be demonstrating the features and how I'm moving around, you would see a small green label that pops up at the bottom of my screen. Let me show that to you once again. Right. It's funny. Let me go down and let me say I want to insert. So it says generate via alt insert. So these are the commands which you can use to do different things in IntelliJ IDEA. I think I need to increase the font of presentation assistant. Right, so the font size is 30. Let me make it to 40. So when I go here, when I say alt insert, the font is bigger now, and you can see the green label at the top, at the bottom of my screen, which would show the shortcuts, flash the shortcuts that I would be using during this demonstration. So now that we already have the getters and setters, what is the other thing that you would need for this data class? If you have been working with collections, you know that if you do not define the equals and hash code methods for a class, then you would not be able to retrieve and set those values as keys. because it would not be comparing the values per se, they would be comparing the references. So let me add the equals and hash code method as well, right? So this looks good. Let me see if I'm missing any method. Yes, I am. Let me also override the toString method. So this looks perfect. I was able to generate this complete class using the shortcuts that I have in my IDE. So what is the problem? Why are we cribbing so much about records? The problem is, even though I could use my IDE to write all the code, the intention is still not clear. It doesn't say anywhere that this code is just a carrier of data. It's encapsulating the details for a person. So another developer would still need to read and wade through all the code to understand that, yes, this is just a plain, it's Pojo. So the intention is not clear. So let's see how records can help. So let me go back and let me go to the project window, and I'm saying, let me delete this, right? Now, I say I want to create a Java class as a record now, and I'll say person, and now I say string name and int age. That is it. What I did with all those lines of code in the previous example, I'm doing that with just one line of code. Now it records give me a compact form to define my data class, and all the other methods that I was talking about, uh, it only has setters method, not getters method, but it has the toString, hash code, and equals, which are required if you want to store this to collection classes as keys, of course. So you get all this. Let's go back and see if I can use this. So I say how to store and retrieve details of class. Let me instantiate that. I say person is equal to new person. Let's call the name as, define the name as Java. And I say Java is 25 this year. Yay. And how do I write it? Let me just call the write read method, um, write read person method, and I'm parsing the person instance that I just created, and I have a text file, and the name of the text file is, I guess, yes, that was it. Let's see if I could run this class. I say read and write object, and let's see what happens. Right, so yes, we'll get through. Yes. Wow. It's live demo, so something has to go wrong. Okay, so we're talking about serializable exception. Oh, right. So let me go back to my class and let me say implements serializable. Right. So now let me go back and see if I fix this problem. Okay. So let me run it again and let's see if this works. Yes, it does. So what did we do here? We defined a object class using just one line of code with records, and I could read and write this class to a text file using the code that we have been used to doing. So this is a simple write to file method and read from file method. And I could instantiate this as a regular class. Now let me show you something else. So if I go to my decompile class, let me see if I can get the definition of the record person that we just created. If you see, it's a public final class person, that means no one can extend it, and it extends the record class from the Java lang package. Of course, it implements this because we made it do that. And the fields are private and final, so we don't have any setters, we only have getters. And the name of the getters is the name of the variable. This is not following the Java Bean convention of get name or get age. And we have this equals hash code and the toString method. toString method is here. Great. So let's see. So we just talked about, let me go back to my project. Right. So we are talking about, so we just talked about a new type declaration. We talked about using records. Yes. So can I add fields or methods to a record? Yes and no. Depends on what you're trying to do. If I try to, let's say, I say string and I say address. So this is a field and I'm trying to define the state of my record person using another field, which is not allowed because here is where the fields should go in. So defining instance method, instance variables is not allowed. Of course, if I make it static, that is allowed because now it belongs to the class. I could define instance methods. Like I could say get name in uppercase, and I could return some value. I could, of course, make it string, and then I say name dot to uppercase. So this is allowed. I could add, what is the problem? Missing return statement. Okay, sorry. Right. So I can define an instance method. I can also define a static method. I can define static fields, but instance variables, they are not allowed. So let me go back. Okay. Modifying the default constructor behavior. I could also add a constructor to it. I could say, what do I want to do? So normally, what do you do? In a constructor, you check the value of the parameters which are passed to it. So let's say if age is less than 0, I want to throw a legal argument exception. Yes, I think that would be good. Age cannot be less than 0. Perfect. So this is what I can do. And in this case, the values would be assigned to the instance of record person, and it would also execute this code. So what else? Of course, I can also define a record which is generic. And how do I do that? So let me define a record parcel. Let me say, okay, I say the name of my record. Oh my God, this mic is irritating me so much. I'm so sorry. So let me say the name of my record is parcel. And so I want to make this a generic record. Oh, what did I do? I create a class and not a record. So let me go again. I say I want to create a record and I say parcel. And I want to say that this is a generic record. So let me define the components as contents and let's say double weight, right? And what do I do? Let's say I have another class, let's say class table. And how do I instantiate it? Let's say I have a method main. I say parcel and I say table. Parcel, I say new parcel. And what do I pass to it? I say new table. And let's say the weight is some random value. So this is how I can define generic records and instantiate it too. I can also add annotations to it. Let's say I don't want this to be null. So I could just add the annotation not null here. And we just talked about how to serialize the records. So we're almost done with how the records help you, why you need records, and how you can use them in your application. So let's see what other things that we have. Okay, so now let's talk about pattern matching for instance of, again, which is a preview language feature. So why do you need pattern matching? So let's go to our IDE and find out what do I have in pattern matching. Let's say, okay. Okay, so with pattern matching, what do you have? What is the old way of using instance of? Let's say in this method, I want to figure out or I want to compare if the method parameter obj is a string. And if yes, I just want to print out the value in uppercase. And this is how I can do that. So let's get started. I say if obj uh, instance of, I say string, then I just want to, of course, before I can print out the value uppercase in uppercase, I would need another variable to which I would cast it. So I say string value is equal to, I say obj, and I cast this one. So now a value is casted to string because it is a type of string. And then I say just print out the value. I say to uppercase. So this is great, but not really great. What I'm doing is I have an obvious repetition here. First, I say whether it's an instance of, whether obj is an instance of string. Yes, it is. Perfect. What do you do? What do you do now? The obvious logic next step would be to extract a value, assuming it is a string, but now we have to cast it to a string. That is redundant, and I don't think we need that. And this is what pattern matching for instance of has done to the instance of operator in Java 14. Let's see how we can change that. So let me go here, and it says I can replace a value with a pattern variable. Let's see what happens here. Now, when you see the, I don't need another declaration of a variable because the language does it for me now. Now it says, it introduces a value as a pattern variable, and I just can get rid of the extra line and the extra parenthesis. How many times do you have to calculate if you are not really using an IDE, whether the number of opening braces are equal to the closing braces, one extra on the left, one extra on the right. I had to do that a lot of time when I was using TextPad to do a lot of my examples. I know, a lot of pain. So this is not just about getting rid of one simple line of code or just one pain point. Let's see how it can fit in the bigger picture. So let me go to, let's say, yes, one other thing. The scope of pattern variable a value is limited to the if block here. What if I try to access it here? What if I say else? I just want to say in the else part, I say a value dot to lowercase. I don't get the code completion now because my IDE doesn't recognize a value in the else part because it doesn't exist. What can I do? Let's say I create a field, which is perfect. Now the code compiles, but that could also be a source of confusion because the variable which is referred to here is the field and not the pattern variable here. Just in case you have issues later, so that could also be not really a concern. That's how the feature works. So good to know. So now let's see how we can use pattern matching for instance of at other places. Excuse me. I'll need another sip of water. Excuse me. Yes. So now let me go to, excuse me, class monitor and see. So this is how we are used to writing the equals method. So this is a simple class monitor which has two fields, model and price. The equals method compares whether the object parameter is of the same type. Then it has a cast, and it checks whether the values are same or not. What can we do here? So if I press Alt and Enter in IntelliJ IDEA, it gives me the options that I have to modify the code. So when I say, so you can also see that it is highlighted with a yellow background. When IntelliJ IDEA detects that it has suggestions for modifications, major suggestions, then it highlights the code with a yellow background. So I can take my cursor here, I can say Alt and Enter. It says replace other with a pattern variable, which I do. Perfect. Now what I can do here is I can also merge the nested if statements. What else can I do? I can simplify if else, and I can remove and get rid of if else and just return the comparison here. And this is what you get when you use pattern matching for instance of in your code. The code is still readable, though it's concise, it is still readable. And that what I would say is the best part of using pattern matching for instance of. Just in case if you're not convinced, let me show you another example. So let me go to my project window and let me show you this example. So what is happening here? So let me first of all replace child node with a pattern variable. I say Alt and Enter and replace child nodes with a pattern variable. Now I can merge the nested ifs. Perfect. Now I can also inline the variable node, and what do? I say Control Alt and N, and I say this has inlined the occurrences. Okay, what else can I do? I can go here and I can replace another usage of instance of. So I can detect that I have another usage of instance of, and the IDE can detect as well. So let me also use a pattern variable here. Perfect. I see two ifs here, and let's see if I could merge these if statements. So this is what I get when I use pattern matching for instance of with the other code that I have in my example. The code is concise, but it is still readable. So I think I could convince you to use pattern matching for instance of. Great. Great if I did, but of course, it's up to you as a developer to take a decision and use it in your code base or not. Okay, so let's go to the other feature, which is text blocks. This is also one of my favorites. I would say all these features are so, I like them a lot. And almost all of them are my favorites. So let's go to text blocks and let's see what these text blocks are. So text blocks are multi-line string values. So let's see what the problem is and why do we need text blocks. So we're used to using strings to store a lot of our data. We use strings to define, let's say, queries, database queries for JSON values, for HTML, a lot of different types of values. And the problem with storing all those values as string as is that we need delimiters so that we can escape the special characters that we have in all those type of values. Like JSON has a double quote, and because string uses a double quote as a delimiter, as starting and ending positions for a value, I need to escape those double quotes which are included as part of a JSON value. Let's see how the text blocks can help. So let's assume that we have a variable and I call it a kid. You know how kids are, they're so sweet and cute when they're small. So let's assume the same. So let me say that I have a kid who is small now. So the string value would also be small. Hey, I'm here. Says just one. Ah, so sweet and so cute. But let's say what happens. Now the string is getting longer and irritating. Um, I can crawl now. Wow, this sounds nice. I don't know. Okay. Um, a teen now. Do we need those ellipses? No, we don't. Right. And this is getting better, not really, bigger for sure. And I don't find it quite readable now. Let's assume that your teen wants to learn a new language. What happens learning a new language? And what language does your teen wants to learn? Let's teach him or I don't know. Okay, not bother with the language. Let's start with some scripting or the data types. So let me see if I already have some HTML or other values. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I have some JSON values. Ha ha ha. Do you think only the kids can torture us? No, we are smart enough to know how to torture them. Please don't tell this to your kid. So what happens if I paste this value here now? This looks really ugly, can I say that? Because I have to really pay a lot of attention to understand this string value now, because to insert a double quote in the string value, I have to use this delimiter. And this is just one of the example, to insert a lot of characters, we have to use different delimiters or skip sequences. So what can I do? I can define my values as, let me just take it. Yeah. Let me say I have string, I say text block, and I say, okay, now I can define a text block using, just a moment. This is what happens when you scroll like editing. Now, let me copy paste the same JSON value which I copied from the text file. Now see the difference. I have a multi-line string value, but I don't need all those escape sequences to use to write the value. It's easy to read, it's easy to write, and behind the scenes, it is still a string. So Java is not adding a new data type uh, to the language. It is still the old string, but the compiler is doing the heavy lifting now, just as in the case of records that we saw. The records were converted to a regular class when it was compiled. The same is the case with the text blocks. And what else? Are we missing something? Yes. And of course, I talked about this is not a string variation. And what happens to the incidental white space? I'm talking about the space which is right before the when your tag name starts. Does Java include that as a part of your value, or it doesn't? So that's called an incidental white space. So when you see, I'm not sure whether that's green vertical line is visible to you. If you could maximize your video, that I think that would be visible to you. So if I move this opening brace to the left, you would see the vertical line moving with it. So this is how you define how much spaces you want to include as part of your data. And I could also use the closing delimiter to move this line. Can you see the line moving? So that's how I can control what I want to include in my value. And the other quick detail is that you need a new line after the first opening delimiter, which is the 3 double quotes. Otherwise, you'll get a compilation error. Right. So there are a lot of other examples in how IntelliJ IDEA supports working with text blocks, but I'm not sure whether I would be able to cover that all today because there are so many other details like the trailing spaces. How do you get rid of them? Do you want to insert them? You don't want to insert them. Do you want to insert the trailing new line character in your values? There are ways to specify that yes, you want them or you don't want them. And I have a link in my presentation which I have a detailed piece which you can check out to find out more details. And one last thing that I would like to add is that you can use language injection or reference. So if I inject, let's say, this is a JSON value. I just injected the JSON language reference in this text block, and that gives me as a developer not only code highlighting, but also detection of errors, because as you can see a red underline, if I press S2, I can see the error message also. And then I realize I missed a comma. So the language insertion or reference insertion in your string values is available both for text blocks and for your string values, the regular strings as well. So just in case if you are on Java 8 and you really can't use text blocks, but you also want to work with the values which you might want to check against certain rules like syntax, then I would highly recommend using language injection or insertion. That's a great feature in an IntelliJ IDEA, which I absolutely love. So let's go to the next feature that I would be covering, which is switch expressions, another of my favorite feature. I would be saying that to almost all the features, so please don't think that I'm just trying to make things up. They are really my favorite features. So what is it with the switch expressions? So this is how you have been used to using a switch statement. So this is a method which takes in a value of type single-use plastic, which is defined right here. And depending on the value that you pass to it, of course, it first matches the value. Depending on the value, it assigns a value to the variable, and it has a break statement so that you accidentally don't let the control fall through the other case label. And you do that for all the values here, which looks simple, but what are the pain points here? One, whenever you see repetition, that is the place to think about how you can improve your code. So in this case, I see that this is the repetition here because I have to use the break statement in every case label. And if I miss out this break label, what happens? The control will fall through the plate case label, and instead of assigning this value to the variable damage, it would fall through and assign this value to the variable diamond, which is not a good thing. And of course, what we are seeing here is, again, assigning of the variable. So I'm seeing the repetition here again, as you can see. So these are the cases which you can, which switch expressions allowed developers to get rid of. So let me convert that to a switch expression. So this is how I could define a switch expression, which depending on the value which are passed to it, it returns a value. So I'm getting rid of both the repetition here, the usage of the break statement and the assignment statement, because now I'm simply returning a value, and switch, it's a switch expression. So it's returning a value rather than just assigning a value. Great. And what other thing can I do? Okay, so of course, because I could also inline the variable here. Right, and in this case, because I'm talking about the enum values, which are exhaustive, I know what exactly the count of values are, I can get away with the default clause here. I can just delete this. But what about if you are talking about values like int or string, which can be passed to a switch statement or expression? In that case, you would need the default case, because if you are making a switch expression to return a value, it should be able to return a value no matter what value you pass to it. So in that case, you would need the default case. And it's not just about returning a single value. You could also define, let's say, a block here. I could say int age is equal to 10. I could even go out for a walk, go out for a walk. I could do anything, but at the end of it, I must return a value. So this is how you could also define a block of code in your switch statements. Right, so what do we have next? Done. Okay, so this is the link which I mentioned. That's a blog and screencast on Java 14 with IntelliJ IDEA, covers a lot more details than I just covered until now. I talked about that these features were introduced as preview language features in Java 14. That essentially means is that the feature is complete but not permanent in the language. And why does Oracle do that? Because unlike the previous release cadence, which was I guess, after 3 to 4 years, Oracle had enough time to test out the features. But now with the 6 months release cadence, it's not easy for Oracle to kind of test out all the features using all probably considering the usage by other developers as well. So they are added to the language as a preview language feature. The IDE that I'm using, IntelliJ, would set the parameters to use these features automatically when you define the language level to be used as 15. If you're using a text editor, you would need explicit values to be passed to your compilation during the compilation and runtime. And as I mentioned, the feature is complete but not permanent. Oracle is waiting for you to submit your feedback so that the changes or the concerns could be addressed. Does Oracle change any feature? Yes, it does. The switch expression, which I just demoed, earlier used to use break to return a value from a switch label, but now it uses yield because a lot of developers complain that break is kind of messing with the what they are already using for to return a value. So let me quickly go. So this is Brian's tweet. He talks about he's looking for developer feedback on the latest Java features. I asked him, is there a last date? Which he said no, but yes, the sooner the better. There's no hard deadline. Oh my God, we're running out of time. So let me quickly cover the two enhancements, additions in Java 15. Again, these are the two go-to resources which I mentioned for Java 14 as well, which you can access to find out what's new in Java 15. This is the page that you would use to access the differences between the API in Java from 14 to 15. The new language features in Java 15 are the sealed classes and interfaces. Now, again, it has been introduced as a preview language feature. This feature allows, the syntax of this feature allows or limits any of your classes or interfaces from being extended or implemented by a certain class. That's the syntax. But why would you want to do that? Why would you want to limit which class or interface can extend or implement them? In this case, the intent is to model your business domain. What if you want to define or limit a set of values? So let's go to the example to understand what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it would be difficult to understand. So let me go to my project window and see what we have here. Okay, so here I'm talking about class plant, which is extended by, let's say, a couple of classes: herb, shrub, and climber, and another class which is extending the cucumber, which is extending climber. Now, how would you usually process a type of plant? So let's go back and see if we have, yes. So this is how you would do that. You pass a type of plant to a method, say process type, and depending on what the type is, let's say if it's an instance of cucumber, you do this. If it's a climber, you call another method, and XYZ. So in this example, I've tried to address all the different type of plants which I created in my this class. I'm trying to address everything I have in the hierarchy here. But what happens is I still have to use an else clause here because that's how the language is. Because I have, until now, I have had no means to seal that hierarchy. I can define my class as final, but then no one would be able to extend it. I can define my class as package private so that only the classes in the same package can extend it. But again, even though am limiting the other classes which can extend it to the same package, I'm also limiting the accessibility because then this class would not be accessible outside the package. Now, with the seed classes and interfaces, I can do that. I can define class plant as a sealed type. And what that means? It means that it can define which classes it would permit to extend it. Let me say I want herb to extend it, I want shrub to extend it, and I want climber to extend it as well. It says perfect, but herb can extend me, excellent, but it has to specify how does it want to extend me. So let's say what the options are. Okay, so it can be sealed, non-sealed, or final. So let's make it final. When I make class herb as final, that really means that class herb can extend class permit, but of course we are sealing the hierarchy there. No other class can extend class herb. What about the other one? Let's make it non-sealed. This really means it opens the hierarchy a little bit. Now I say shrub can extend plant, but any other class can extend shrub without defining that it wants to extend shrub. There are a lot of reasons to it, but I think we're running out of time. So if you want to know more about it, you can ping me on Twitter. I don't know anything. So now, what are the other options for this? Let's see. I can make an extended class a seed class. And what does that mean? That means that I again want it to be, it's to define which other classes can extend this one. So in this case, I say it can be extended by cucumber. And again, because I am defining it as a seed class, again, I have to follow and define how I would like it to be extended. So in this case, I make it as a final class. Let me go back to the this example that I was talking about now. So this is still in works, and probably in one of the next versions of Java, pattern matching would be added to switch expressions as well. We just talked about pattern matching for instance of and switch expressions. So Java is working on, Oracle is working on adding pattern matching to switch expressions. And in that case, we would be able to take a decision on what do we want to do depending on the type that we pass to a method like this. And the advantage here is that this would be an exhaustive list. Now, I really don't have to deal with the else part. It's not really dealing about the else part or writing those 3 lines of code. No, we are not talking about the effort that goes in writing these 4 lines of code. We're talking about the uncertainty that comes or creeps in for any application, because here we're not sure what the type of the plant is and what do I do if this happens. But when I have a sealed hierarchy, I can say, okay, I don't really have to worry about the else part. This is exactly what I do when I get this type of value, which I think could be beneficial for a lot of use cases. So similarly, you can also define your interfaces like move, which I have already defined as a sealed interface, and it permits other interfaces to extend it, and a class which can also, so this interface defines which class can implement it. So interfaces can define which other interfaces can extend them, or the classes that can implement them. So that is all about the C classes. Let me quickly go to the record. So there has been one modification to the records in Java 15, which is the addition of local records. So let me go to, where will be, okay, did we miss it? No, okay. So I don't have the time and I'm already 5 minutes over. So this is how you can define a local record in Java 15. And this is again, if you want to kind of encapsulate the data that you're working in within a method, so that you really don't have to work with individual fields, and you can have them in one record. And the other modification is that you can also define interfaces as local in Java 15, and also with the enums can be defined as local to a method. So let's go back and see. Okay, and you can also use this link to refer to get more information on the C classes and interfaces and the modifications in Java 15 that I just talked about on IntelliJ IDEA with IntelliJ IDEA. So I don't just talk about how to use IntelliJ IDEA with this feature. I'm also talking about why you need this feature and how you can use it in your application. Right. So I guess I already touched upon this. So let me go to my editor and show this to you. So I can select the project SDK here, and I can select the project language here. So if you want to work with all the examples that I worked during this demo, we'll have to define the project level as 15, because I was using both 14 and 15. But if you are interested in working with only 14, you can do that. Perfect. So what else are we? Okay. Thank you so much. And let me go back and see if I have some questions. How do I do that? This is insane. Why do I land up in that situation all the time? Okay, so stop sharing. And how do I still go back? That's funny. Okay. Right. Yes. Yes, I'm good to take the questions now. Thank you so much. Let me start. Okay, so a lot of people are still on Java 8. I know still on 8 to 11, 8, right? Mostly 8, but nowadays 14 Faith, which is great, 8 and 13. Mala, can you paste the link here, Faith? I did not understand which link you're talking about. So if you're still here, if you could just ask your question, or if you're talking about any of the links which I used in my presentation, I would share my presentation with the organizers probably by the end of the day today. And I would also tweet it from my handle. So if you want, you can take the links from those. Okay. Lombok is sad now, but yes, Lombok is good. But what I'm talking about is when Java, the language, has the features, then I think it's the best part, because it also works with the other language features in the language, which is again interesting. Record is nice, but looks like it's not ready for REST operations, marshal and unmarshalling. I haven't really tried that part. So I think, Hussein, you can try it out and let me know how it works. Apart from the obvious syntactical improvements, are there any under the hood improvements with the record classes? Salim, I'm not sure whether I understand your question. Let me explain what I understand. When you talk about under the hood improvements, we're talking about the syntactic sugar which Java is giving you now. So you don't really have to define all the code using IDE or text editor or in any way. I'm talking about the setters method. I'm talking about constructors, the toString, hash code, and equals method. So as a developer, you don't really have to add those methods to your class if you are only talking about POJOs. Once your code compiles, it is as good as a regular Java class, whether you defined it using the methods I just talked about, or whether you used record to do that, whether you use the term record to do that. After compilation, both would be same. So I don't think there are any performance improvements or other improvements that you're talking about. I'm so sorry if I don't get your question. What about constructor overloading? Yes, you can do that because I don't think I have the time to show that to you, but yes, that is possible. You just have to make sure that you're calling one from the other. I'm unsure whether that was implicit or do you have to make it explicit. Yes, you'll have to check because I did play around with that and it is possible for sure. Excellent. Yes, it is visible. That's good. Wow, perfect features. Switch has always been an improvement area in most of the upcoming Java versions. So switch expressions was introduced in Java 12 as switch expressions. It was not, so you can still use the old switch statement. Of course, you can use both the versions in your code now. And I agree, whenever you see repetition, there is always scope for improvement. Could you please paste the link here? Hamza, I don't understand what are the, what link are you talking about? If you're talking about the IntelliJ IDEA link, let me just copy paste that because it would be good if people can access it now. I don't know for how long this would be accessible. Where is the link? Why can I not find it? Yes, I can find it now. So this is the link for the blog on Java 14. And let me get you the link for blog on Java 15. Right. Yes. Okay. The records. So Hamza, I've already pasted the links here. I'm not sure whether you are still here and whether you are watching. Okay, so I've done my part. The records have, how can I annotate for like ORM use with Hibernate? Kailos, I think there are issues with working with the records in Hibernate. I'm not sure which one, but there are. So probably you can, I'm sorry, you'll have to Google it. Do you have any cheat sheet for awesome shortcuts for IntelliJ IDEA? If you, so that's a question by Hamza. So Hamza, if you are already using IntelliJ IDEA, I'm not sure. Let me share my screen again and show that to you right away. So I'm going to my editor. So if I go to the help menu, I can see key map reference. So if I click on here, I can see the list of shortcuts which are available. Because I'm using a Windows machine, it shows me a list of the Windows shortcut, Windows and Linux key map, because they are mostly same. If you use Mac, it would show you for Mac, and also you could visit our website and look for the key map reference. So that would be another place to kind of view that. So let me stop sharing my screen now. So I think if we don't have any more questions, so Hussein is saying, thanks for everything. I'll try to write to you later about my question. I hope to see you again. Thank you. Yes, so Hussein, if you want, you can write to me at mala.gupta@bitbrains.com. Did I type it right? Yes, I did. So you can email me your question if you want. You can also tag me on Twitter, whatever works best with you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your participation, for answering what version of Java are you on, and all the best to you. Bye-bye.